On Christmas Eve, as snow blanketed the quiet streets and families gathered in warm homes, Daniel Harper sat alone in his small house, wrapping a handmade wooden train for his son. He thought the night would pass in silence, a modest holiday shaped by love and loss, but fate had other plans. Just after midnight, a knock shattered the stillness. When Daniel opened the door, he found two little twin girls, shivering, tear-streaked, and clutching a broken doll and a dented music box. With no parents in sight and eyes full of fear, they begged for shelter. Daniel hesitated only a moment before stepping aside. He didn't know it yet, but that single act of kindness would unravel secrets, stir old wounds, and change the meaning of family forever. Snow pressed against the window panes in soft, endless sheets, muffling the little house at the end of Maple Street. Inside, Daniel Harper sat at the kitchen table with his sleeves rolled up, carefully wrapping a wooden train set he had built by hand. The smell of pine from the small tree in the corner mingled with the faint aroma of cocoa simmering on the stove. His son Ethan had finally drifted off to sleep upstairs, clutching his stuffed bear. Daniel exhaled slowly, shoulders heavy with the ache of another year lived in quiet perseverance. He was a single father now, a craftsman who made do with small commissions and odd carpentry jobs. This Christmas Eve was supposed to be simple, just him and Ethan, and the fragile traditions they tried to preserve since losing his wife years earlier. He thought the night would pass in silence, but silence has a way of breaking when least expected. A sudden knock at the door startled him. It was sharp, almost frantic, carrying through the stillness of midnight. Daniel frowned, wiping his hands on a rag, and walked to the door. When he pulled it open, his breath caught. Standing there, shivering in the pale glow of the porch light, were two little girls, twins. Their hair was tangled with snowflakes, their coats thin and torn, their cheeks streaked with tears. They clutched each other's hands so tightly their knuckles were white. One held a frayed doll missing an eye. The other pressed a dented music box against her chest. "Please," the smaller one whispered, voice trembling. "Can we come in? It's so cold." For a heartbeat, Daniel froze. Questions thundered in his head. Where were their parents? Why were they alone? Could this be some kind of mistake? Yet when he looked into their wide eyes, filled with desperation, his hesitation dissolved. He opened the door wider and gestured them inside. The warmth of the house wrapped around them as they stepped in cautiously, leaving wet footprints across the wooden floor. Daniel fetched blankets from the couch and wrapped them around their frail shoulders. He ladled warm cocoa into mugs and set slices of bread with honey in front of them. The girls ate with small, quick bites, as though afraid the food might vanish if they lingered. When Ethan padded down the stairs, rubbing his eyes, his gaze landed on the two strangers. For a moment, he looked puzzled. Then his face lit up with a child's instinctive acceptance. "Are they Christmas angels, Dad?" he asked softly. Daniel managed a half-smile. "Something like that," he said, though inside unease swirled. Still, watching Ethan sit beside the girls, sharing his bear without hesitation, he felt a flicker of warmth he hadn't known in years. As the night deepened, the children began to settle. The twins exchanged few words, mostly whispers Daniel couldn't catch, but every so often their eyes darted toward the door, as though fearing someone might burst in and drag them away. Daniel tried to ask their names, where they came from, but their answers were vague, rehearsed almost. "Mom's not here," one muttered, before clamming up. The other tightened her grip on the battered music box, winding it once until a faint, haunting melody floated out. Sweet, yet broken, like a memory fraying at the edges. Daniel's heart ached. He saw reflections of his own Ethan in them, the same innocence shadowed by fear of losing too much, too soon. He remembered nights after his wife's death when Ethan had cried himself to sleep. He remembered the hollow feeling of trying to comfort a child while broken himself. And now, two girls he had never met sat in his kitchen with eyes that told stories they could not yet speak aloud. Later, when the children were finally tucked onto the pull-out couch with Ethan beside them, Daniel lingered by the tree. The small house glowed with an unexpected energy. He listened to the soft breathing of three children, their little chests rising and falling in sync. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, but inside, the air carried a fragile kind of peace. Daniel whispered to himself, "Maybe this is the miracle we needed. Or maybe it's the storm before another loss." For the first time in years, the house did not feel empty. Yet Daniel knew that whatever path had led those girls to his door on Christmas Eve would not be simple. There was a reason they had arrived in the dark, clutching relics of another life. He didn't know it yet, but that truth, whatever it was, would change him forever. For now, though, he let the uncertainty rest. He pulled the quilt higher over their shoulders, turned off the lights, and sat in the quiet, watching the trees' faint glow shimmer across their sleeping faces. Christmas Eve had brought him a gift he had not expected. Hope wrapped in mystery, sorrow wrapped in love. The morning light crept softly through the curtains, casting pale golden stripes across the living room. Daniel stirred awake in the armchair, stiff from sleeping upright, and found the pull-out couch crowded with tangled blankets. Ethan was nestled between the two little girls, all three still fast asleep. For a brief moment, the sight made him smile, a quiet scene of innocence, the kind of peace he hadn't felt in years. But peace rarely lingers when questions go unanswered. As the day unfolded, Daniel noticed things that unsettled him. The twins, whose names he finally coaxed out as Lily and Rose, laughed easily with Ethan, but their laughter carried a sharp edge, like children laughing to cover fear. At mealtimes, they devoured food quickly, eyes darting as though expecting it to be snatched away. At night, their joy faded into shadows. Both girls woke screaming from nightmares, clutching their doll and the music box as though those objects were lifelines. When Daniel tried to comfort them, they calmed only when Ethan crawled over and held their hands. One evening, while clearing the table, Daniel noticed the dented music box sitting slightly open. He picked it up gently, meaning to close it, but a slip of folded paper peeked out from a hidden compartment. His chest tightened. With careful fingers, he unfolded the page. It was a hospital discharge document, fragile with creases, bearing the name of a woman he recognized, Anna Whitmore. His heart lurched. Anna, a face from his past. They had sat side by side in lecture halls 2 decades earlier, once sharing dreams of a future before life pulled them apart. According to the paper, she had been a patient in the oncology ward, late stage. Daniel sat heavily at the table, memories flooding back. He remembered Anna's sudden disappearance from campus, rumors of her entanglement with a wealthy businessman. He remembered her soft laugh, her sharp wit, the way she once told him she dreamed of a family that felt safe. Now, in his hands, was proof she had battled illness and left behind 2 daughters who, by some twist of fate, had landed on his doorstep. His thoughts spun darker. The twins' father, the man Anna had been with, wasn't just any name. Daniel had seen him in news articles, a polished executive who commanded both wealth and influence. If Lily and Rose truly were his daughters, then their appearance at Daniel's humble home was no coincidence. It meant danger, complication, and a truth that could crack open lives on both sides. That night, unable to sleep, Daniel worked quietly in his workshop, sanding the edges of a wooden toy. The rhythm usually calmed him, but his mind wouldn't still. He replayed the words he had overheard earlier when the twins thought he was out of earshot. Rose, clutching the doll, had whispered to Lily, "Daddy never wanted us. He said we were a mistake." Lily hushed her, tears brimming, and wound the music box so its broken melody would drown the memory. The words seared Daniel's chest. He saw himself in them. Saw Ethan's tears when his mother passed. Saw the nights when he wondered if love was enough to heal a child's hurt. He struggled with a gnawing choice. He could take the paper, call child services, and hand over responsibility. That would be the safe path. But when he looked at Ethan, who now ran through the yard with the twins as though they had always been siblings, Daniel knew handing them off would tear something precious apart. For the first time in years, his house was filled with more than obligation. It was filled with laughter, arguments over crayons, and the sound of children learning to trust again. Could he risk losing that, even if the truth brought chaos? The next evening, Daniel sat by the window with the document in his hands, the lamplight illuminating Anna's name. He whispered her name once, as if summoning her ghost. He thought of the woman she had been, the woman who deserved better than abandonment and illness. If these girls were truly her daughters, then they were pieces of her, pieces Daniel could not turn away from. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing down, heavier than any burden of wood or stone he had carried. As snow fell once more outside, Daniel admitted a truth to himself. He was no longer sheltering the twins out of charity or pity. He was protecting them out of love, though he had barely begun to understand it. Yet deep in his bones, he sensed the past was closing in, and the life he knew would never be the same. It began with whispers in town, fragments of rumor that spread faster than snow melting under a sudden sun. By the end of January, the whispers had become headlines. A prominent businessman, Richard Ellison, known for his empire of glass towers and his icy demeanor, was revealed to be the estranged father of two little girls. Daniel's quiet home was thrust into a storm he never asked for. Strangers loitered outside his picket fence with cameras. Reporters shouted questions. The twins clung to Daniel's legs whenever the noise swelled too loud. Ethan, protective despite his age, told them, "Don't worry. Dad won't let anyone take you." When Richard finally appeared, it wasn't with warmth or contrition. He arrived in a black car polished like obsidian, flanked by lawyers. His words cut sharper than the February wind. "They're my blood. They belong with me." He didn't kneel to their level, didn't open his arms. He spoke of legacy, responsibility, reputation. To him, Lily and Rose were obligations, living proof of mistakes he wanted to erase. Daniel's jaw tightened as he stood in the doorway, the twins trembling behind him. "Children aren't trophies," he said quietly. "They're people. They need love, not headlines." What followed was weeks of hearings and paperwork. Daniel found himself in court, the oak-paneled room heavy with judgment. On one side sat Richard's high-priced attorneys, crisp and certain. On the other, Daniel with a modest lawyer named Claire Matthews, a woman who believed in causes more than fees. She prepared tirelessly, and in stolen moments Daniel saw her kindness toward the children, her patience with Ethan. In the chaos, Claire's steady presence became a quiet anchor. The climax came during a custody hearing, when the judge, weary of arguments, asked a simple question: "Where do you girls want to live?" The room stilled. Lily and Rose looked at each other, then stood. Their small shoes tapped nervously on the polished floor as they crossed the room. Richard extended a hand, confident, but the twins walked past him. They ran to Daniel, wrapping their arms around his waist. Their voices shook, but carried enough strength to echo, "We already have a dad." Gasps rippled through the room. Richard's hand fell back empty. The judge's gavel struck wood, but in that moment, the decision was already written in the hearts of everyone watching. Richard's claim crumbled under the weight of truth. He had wealth, but no bond. Daniel had no riches, but he had given the girls warmth, safety, belonging. When the ruling came, granting Daniel full custody, tears blurred his vision. Ethan squeezed his hand. Claire smiled, her eyes shining. Even the judge's voice softened as he said, "Family is not built on blood alone, but on love and devotion." After the hearings ended, Richard vanished from the public eye, his empire tarnished by scandal. Daniel never celebrated his downfall. He carried no glee in another man's shame. Instead, he told the girls gently, "If your father ever seeks forgiveness, you can decide if you want to give it. But here, you'll always be wanted." His words stitched a wound money could never mend. Seasons turned. Snow melted into spring, spring into summer. And by the time the next December rolled around, The Harper house was alive with color and sound. Ethan and the twins decorated a taller tree, ornaments tilting at odd angles but glowing with pride. Daniel repaired the dented music box, and on Christmas Eve it played again. Not broken notes, but a clear, delicate melody. When it chimed through the house, Lily whispered, "It sounds like Mom's lullaby." Daniel bent down, touched their heads, and said, "It sounds like family." Claire joined them that night, bringing cookies and laughter. Though unspoken, a tenderness had begun to grow between her and Daniel, one not built on grand gestures, but on trust and shared devotion to the children. Perhaps in time, love would return to Daniel's life in this unexpected form. As midnight approached, Daniel stepped outside for a moment. Snow drifted gently from the sky, covering the street in soft white. He looked back through the window at the scene inside. 3 children laughing under twinkling lights, Claire pouring cocoa, the music box playing its sweet song. A year ago he had been alone. Now he stood at the center of something greater than he ever imagined. Christmas, he realized, was not about miracles falling from the sky, but about opening the door when hope came knocking. And when he had done so, clutching his doubts, he found a gift more enduring than any wealth. A family stitched together by love, strong enough to heal old wounds and bright enough to light the darkest nights. A year later, Daniel's home was no longer quiet. It overflowed with laughter, warmth, and the kind of love money could never buy. The twin girls who once knocked on his door in the cold now hung ornaments beside Ethan, their voices blending like a chorus of hope. The broken music box, restored by Daniel's steady hands, sang clearly again, a symbol that wounds can be mended and families can be born from unexpected places. This story reminds us that sometimes the greatest gifts arrive when we least expect them, hidden in small knocks on our door. If it touched your heart, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and don't forget to subscribe for more soul-stirring stories of love, healing, and the families we choose.